A special thank you to each of our subscribers who make this channel possible. Here's today's story. In a groundbreaking move, the International Court of Justice, ICJ, is set to embark on the largest case in its history this Monday, as it opens 2 weeks of hearings to determine the legal obligations of nations worldwide in combating climate change. This unprecedented case comes after years of advocacy from vulnerable island nations, particularly those in the Pacific, who are facing existential threats from rising sea levels and extreme weather events. The UN General Assembly had previously requested the ICJ to provide an advisory opinion on the obligations of states concerning climate change, a call that resonates deeply with nations like Vanuatu, which is leading the charge. Margaretha Wurring-Singh, the head of Vanuatu's legal team, emphasized the urgency of the situation, stating, "We want the court to confirm that the conduct that has wrecked the climate is unlawful." Recent data reveals alarming trends. Over the past decade, global sea levels have risen by an average of 4.3 centimeters, 1.7 inches, with certain regions in the Pacific experiencing even higher increases. Additionally, the planet has warmed by approximately 1.3 degrees Celsius, 2.3 degrees Fahrenheit, since pre-industrial times, primarily due to the burning of fossil fuels. Vanuatu is among a coalition of small island states advocating for international legal intervention to address the climate crisis. Ralph Regenvanu, Vanuatu's climate change envoy, articulated the dire circumstances faced by his nation, stating, "We live on the front lines of climate change impact. We are witnesses to the destruction of our lands, our livelihoods, our culture, and our human rights." While any decision rendered by the ICJ would be non-binding and could not directly compel wealthier nations to act, it holds significant symbolic weight and could lay the groundwork for future legal actions, including domestic lawsuits. Leading up to the hearings, various environmental advocacy groups are mobilizing to raise awareness and support. The Pacific Islands students fighting climate change, who were instrumental in initiating the request for an advisory opinion, alongside World Youth for Climate Justice, plan to host an afternoon of speeches, music, and discussions. The court hearings will feature participation from 99 countries and over a dozen intergovernmental organizations, marking the largest assembly of nations in the ICJ's nearly 80-year history. Recently, at the UN's annual climate meeting, nations reached an agreement on how wealthier countries can assist poorer nations grappling with climate-related disasters. However, the commitment of at least $300 billion annually by 2035 falls short of the estimated $1.3 trillion required to effectively combat climate impacts. Vishal Prasad of Pacific Islands students fighting climate change expressed the urgency of the situation, stating, "For our generation and for the Pacific Islands, the climate crisis is an existential threat. It is a matter of survival, and the world's biggest economies are not taking this crisis seriously. We need the ICJ to protect the rights of people at the front lines." The ICJ's panel of 15 judges will address 2 critical questions: what international legal obligations countries have to protect the climate from human-induced greenhouse gas emissions, and what legal repercussions exist for governments whose actions or inactions have severely harmed the environment. Notably, the judges will consider the plight of small island developing states and future generations adversely affected by climate change. Prior to the hearings, the judges were briefed on the scientific evidence regarding rising global temperatures by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. This case at the ICJ follows a series of global rulings compelling governments to take stronger action against greenhouse gas emissions. In May, a UN tribunal on maritime law classified carbon emissions as marine pollution, mandating nations to implement measures to mitigate its effects. Similarly, Europe's highest human rights court recently ruled that countries must enhance protection for their citizens against climate change consequences, a landmark decision with potential ramifications across Europe. The Netherlands, the host country of the ICJ, has also set a precedent. In 2015, a Dutch court ruled that protection from the devastating impacts of climate change is a human right, a judgment upheld by the Dutch Supreme Court in 2019. As the world watches, the ICJ's hearings will not only address legal obligations but also highlight the moral imperative to act on climate change, particularly for those nations most vulnerable to its impacts. The outcome of this historic case could shape international climate policy and influence how nations respond to one of the most pressing challenges of our time. That's all for this story. We upload videos every day covering many different subjects, so hit that subscribe button to stay informed. Thanks for watching.